Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's webinar on insights into the business opportunities in Cambodia under the Festival 2022, brought to you by the Singapore Business Federation. The festival is part of the Global Connect at SBF program, an initiative in partnership with Enterprise Singapore. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. The information in this webinar is intended to provide general information only and does not contain or convey any legal or other advice. All efforts have been taken to ensure the information provided in this webinar is as accurate as of publication date, and the organizers and speakers reserve all rights in the material provided. Before we start today's session, I would like to walk you through SBF and our Global Connect at SBF initiative. Global Connect is an initiative formulated to assist Singapore companies that are looking to internationalize for the first time, as well as companies that are intending to expand and deepen their presence overseas. Global Connect helps Singapore companies to first learn about the country and the business opportunities through sharing of useful resources, advisories on free trade agreements, and structured training. We also conduct overseas visits for members to let them experience and understand local business and culture. Second, we help companies to land on business deals through B2B matching, facilitate market and business development through identifying the right market for businesses and assessing business capabilities. We currently have 3 SBF overseas offices, also known as Singapore Enterprise Center, set up in Jakarta, Ho Chi Minh City, and Bangkok to provide on-the-ground facilitation and in-market assistance. Lastly, we assist Singapore companies to localize in those markets for a sustainable business presence to help to grow and integrate with local networks and strengthen their presence. Next, we will conduct a poll to explore your interest in taking your business overseas and at which stage of internationalization your company is currently at. According to a report by the Asian Development Bank, Cambodia's economy is forecast to grow by 6.5% in 2023, led by the strong merchandise exports and foreign direct investment inflows. Alongside a young population and growing middle class, the government also launched an economic recovery plan in December 2021, focusing on 3 priority strategies, namely economic recovery, reforms, and building resilience. This afternoon, we have prepared a lineup of experts who will be sharing with you the overview of doing business and investing in Cambodia, the opportunities available, and first-hand experience from our Singapore companies who have ventured successfully in Cambodia. First, I would like to invite His Excellency Mr. Sok Kroon, Ambassador of the Royal Embassy of Cambodia to the Republic of Singapore, to give his welcome remarks. Ambassador Sok Kroon, please.
Thank you, Hong Si-jun. My respect to His Excellency Chandra Sopir, Minister in charge, to the Prime Minister. Sorry, it's okay. You can hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I start again, please.
Okay.
My profound respect to His Excellency Chandra Sopir, Minister attached to the office, to the Prime Minister, Secretary General of the Council of the Development of Cambodia, Her Excellencies Lai Te-ching, Ambassador of Singapore to Cambodia, His Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon and greeting from the Royal Embassy of Cambodia here. Today, it is my real honor and pleasure to join the webinar under the theme, Discovering Cambodia, Insight into the Business Opportunity in Cambodia. Taking this opportunity, I would like to thank the Council for the Development of Cambodia, Singapore Embassy, and Singapore Business Federation for the organizing this important webinar. My appreciation goes as well to the speakers for their active participation, perspective, and inputs. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for this topic, I would like to start by highlighting Cambodia economic development, investment opportunity, as well as bilateral relations with Singapore. Cambodia achieved annual 7.7% economic growth for the last 20 years, thanks to the peace, political stability, and sound macroeconomic policy. The open economy has changed our image and bring a significant progress to the whole society, improving the living standard and generating a good job for our people. The middle class is rising. Cambodia is ranked as one of the fast growing economies in the world, turning it into lower middle income countries. In 2015, she is on the path to become a higher middle income country by 2030 and high income country by 2050. We are located at the heart of the Southeast Asia ASEAN with a strong, dynamic, and productive young labor force. Cambodia adopt pro-business approach, which are ingredient to attract foreign direct investment. Our strength result from good governance, a window service, trustworthy, and legal framework, making Cambodia an attractive place for economic activity for the last 2 decades. Ladies, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Cambodia and Singapore have enjoyed robust, long-standing and excellent relations and multifaceted cooperation underpinned by the economic and trade links and people-to-people connections. Among other factors, the bilateral relation continue to grow from strength to strength. The trade between the two countries increased significantly over the past decade. Of course, it reached $6.8 billion in 2021. In 2021, despite the disruption of the COVID-19, the investment flow from Singapore to Cambodia hit $134.81 million in 2021, making Cambodia one of the key sources of the foreign direct investment to Cambodia. Singapore is the third largest investor with the total amount of $2.7 billion after China and South Korea. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic hit seriously almost every country, affecting human life, public health, and economy, including the disruption of global supply chain. Besides the COVID-19, the world faced a risk of significantly major economic recession amid rising inflation, food insecurity, soaring energy pressure, and Russia-Ukraine war. The pandemic is nowhere near over. We will live with the COVID-19 in the new normal and are prepared for the new disease in the future. On the other hand, Cambodia opened its border to passengers last November, given the highest rate of vaccination of population reaching over 94%. Both vaccinated and vaccinated passengers can travel to Cambodia without quarantine. Now we start the third booster. The virus are well managed and under control in Cambodia due to the highest rate of vaccination, social support package, and financial assistance for business. Cambodia economic growth rebound at approximately 3% in 2021 after a contraction of 3.1% in 2020, and is expected to rise at 5.4% in 2022, according to the Ministry of Economy and Finance. This prompts the credibility and confidence of investors over the government's response policies. In the context of the post-COVID-19 economic recovery, the Royal Government of Cambodia introduced a series of reforms and measures aiming to enhancing its competitiveness, promote economic diversity, build stronger and more resilience, as well as facilitate favorable and more conducive business environment in Cambodia. Most importantly, a new law on investment was adopted last October to supplant the new one enacted in 1994 and amended in 2003. His Excellency Sokchanasapir, Minister attached to the Prime Minister and Secretary General of the Council for Development of Cambodia will give a deeper insight to the new law. Meanwhile, an economic diplomacy strategy for 2021 to 2023 was launched early 2021 by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation with a view to promoting trade, investment, tourism, and culture to contribute to the national economic development and enhance Cambodia's interests regionally and internationally. Our diplomats have done our part and intensify their efforts to implement and promote such economic diplomacy. We have achieved significant and fruitful achievement over years for its implementation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, finally, I do hope that this webinar today will provide a platform for speakers and participants to share experiences, ideas, and perspectives, as well as to seek more understanding on favorable and conducive business environment in Cambodia, and that it will certainly help in encouraging more business to Cambodia. I look forward to welcoming you and foreign investors for their business in Cambodia. I would like also to express my sincere thanks to Singaporeans who are running business and investing in Cambodia, and those who are interested in expanding their regional presence and network. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Sokkhun. Next up, I would like to invite Her Excellency Ms. Teo Lei Ching, Ambassador of Singapore to the Kingdom of Cambodia, for the welcome remarks. Ambassador Teo, please.
Your Excellency Sokchenda Sopia, Your Excellency Ambassador Sokken, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to say a few words at today's webinar, Discovering Cambodia, Insight into Business Opportunities in Cambodia. Since the Kingdom's accession to the World Trade Organization in 2004, Cambodia has embarked on a determined path of economic liberalization. Prior to the onset of COVID-19, Cambodia was powering on with an average growth rate of 7% for about 2 decades. As the country emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic, following a successful vaccination campaign, a return to high levels of growth is anticipated. In particular, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the world's largest free trade agreement, is expected to unleash significant upsides. Singapore is amongst Cambodia's top 5 foreign investors. Investment spans sectors such as real estate, energy, trading and distribution, retail, education, and finance. Cambodia and Singapore enjoy easy connectivity with 35 passenger flights per week. Situated at the heart of Southeast Asia, Cambodia has the following key attributes as an investment destination. 1. An expanding middle-income population. Between 2015 and 2020, consumer spending has increased at an annual average of 6.5% year-on-year, opening doors for new products to enter the market. 2. A growing digital economy. Fueled by a young population with a mean age of just 25, Cambodia has one of the highest mobile penetration rates in the world. 3. An investment-friendly environment, which includes attractive tax incentives and 100% foreign ownership. Central to this is the investment law under the dynamic stewardship of our next speaker, Council for the Development of Cambodia, Secretary General Sokchenda Sopia. Cambodia aims to become a high middle-income country by 2030 and a high-income country by 2050. Enterprising Singapore businesses recognize this and are quick to seize the opportunities ahead. For example, retail and food services companies like Charles & Keith, Pedro, Love Bonito, and Koi have successfully established presence in Cambodia. Last month, Jumbo signed a memorandum of understanding with Cambodian conglomerate Chipmong Group. Its first outlet is slated to be launched in Q4 this year. Other Singapore food companies have also entered Cambodia by tapping on Lim Siang Hua's extensive logistics network. Commercial Director, Mr. Richard Seah of Lim Siang Hua is one of the speakers this afternoon. Arcadia Group, a software-as-a-service platform for users to build their own online marketplace, has also expanded operations into Cambodia. Fintech solution companies such as Liquid Pay and Adiria are collaborating with Cambodian banks to offer solutions for cross-border digital payments and end-to-end digital marketing interface. In the logistics sector, in May this year, YCH Group signed a memorandum of understanding with another Cambodian conglomerate, Worldbridge, to develop the Phnom Penh Logistics Complex. Today's webinar is timely for professionals, business owners, and CEOs. Some of you may be new to doing business in Cambodia. Others may already be familiar, but are keen to learn more. I wish you a very productive session and hope that today's deliberations will result in useful B2B leads. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Teo. Next, I would like to invite His Excellency, Mr. Sok Chenda Sopia, Minister attached to the Prime Minister and Secretary General of the Council for the Development of Cambodia, to deliver his keynote address. Your Excellency, please.
Your Excellency, Teo Lai Cheng, Ambassador of the Republic of Singapore to Cambodia, Ambassador Sok Khun, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Cambodia to Singapore, ladies, gentlemen, and dear friends, a very good afternoon from Phnom Penh. I am of the view that I would prefer to see you in person in Singapore, but I sincerely wish that with this webinar organized with the great cooperation from the Singapore Business Federation, I'm from Phnom Penh, be able to reach you out and to provide you, to update you on what is happening in Cambodia. Actually, we all may know more about what is happening in the United States or somewhere else in Europe. And it's very strange. Sometimes we don't know what is going on next door. It is for this reason that I have insisted with both the Singapore Business Federation, but also with the Singapore Embassy in Phnom Penh, especially with Her Excellency the Ambassador. I insist to have this session. Here we are now. So it's an opportunity for me to again and again thanks the Federation as well as the Embassy of Singapore in Phnom Penh. What I wish this afternoon is just to update you. And preferably, I wish to bring you good news. All of us, not you, all of us, you as well as us, has experienced tough time during the past 3 years. And on the front page of the media, there are more bad or alarming news rather than good news. Today, I'm here only for the good news. First, for those of you who are not very familiar with Cambodia, Her Excellency the Ambassador has mentioned some very example already, but please be aware that as a foreign businessman, as a foreign investor in Cambodia, you will enjoy the same rights than any national, than any Cambodian businessman. To be frank, at one exception, referring to our constitution, the ownership of the land is reserved for nationals for Cambodian. But apart from this, I wish you, and don't ask to whoever, I tell you, you should believe me, you can do business in all sectors without any restriction. All sectors of activities are open. Banking, insurance, telecom, agriculture. I mentioned those sectors because in many countries, member of ASEAN, like Singapore, like Cambodia, do open those sectors, for example, agriculture, but with certain limitation. It's not the case in Cambodia. No limitation in all activities. This is the first information that I like to insist on. Second, you are good and successful business women and men. I'm sure if you are coming to Cambodia, you will make money, make profit. Fair enough. Nothing wrong with this. The good news is that there is no capital control in Cambodia. You want to repatriate your money, your profit, or to send it to somewhere else, please do so. In some countries, you can bring in, but if you want to send the money out, it will be another story. So this is the second important information. And the third is what has been mentioned by our ambassador in Singapore. Cambodia has recently adopted a new law on investment. In 1994, we have adopted the law on investment, and that law at that time was already very liberal. As I mentioned, all sectors open, national treatment for all investors, including the foreign investors, free repatriation. Those were already in the law back in 1994. But the good news with the new law and acts since last October 2021 is that more sectors are eligible for incentive. Businessmen, when they look at the investment law, this law has 42 articles. They will not look at the 42 articles. They will look at the chapter where they will be incentive. So don't look at the others, look at chapter 6, article 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Those articles are dealing with fiscal incentive. Article 24 enumerate 19 sectors or activities eligible for incentive. The previous law mentioned a certain number of activities already. But what is new is for the first time, SMEs, not all, but some are eligible for incentive. And I think that this should be music to some Singaporean ears. Of course, you have Temasek in Singapore, but you have also in the region and in Cambodia plenty of very dynamic, innovative Singaporean companies. Please come to Cambodia. Come to Cambodia. The new investment law has something for you to look at, and better than this, to take advantage from. Very positively. Take advantage doesn't mean something wrong. This is new. Second thing, previous law, we have a set of incentives, tax holidays, duty-free exemption on the import of raw materials, equipment, machinery. But the new law is better. Article 26, tell you that your project, provided that you will fulfill some condition, will be eligible for basic incentive. Basically, the tax holiday from 3 up to 9 years, depending on the sector of activities. No problem, no discretionary, 3 years basic for government factories, for hotel, but 9 years for project in agriculture. You understand that to make money in agriculture, it takes a bit more time. It's a bit more risky. For that, we recognize it, and they have the maximum period of tax holidays, 9 years. But within this basic incentive, there is something that companies like. Previous law, during tax holiday period, you have nothing to pay. When the tax holiday period expires, you will have to see the tax department and to give to the government to pay the corporate tax 20%. From 0, you will jump to 20%. The new law is better. Exemption period, tax holiday period, 0. But after the tax exemption period, you will not have to pay immediately 20%. You will pay 25% of 20% during 2 years. After these 2 years, you will pay 50% of the 20%. It means 10%. And then the 2 next years, you will pay 75% of the 20%. It means after 0, you will have to pay gradually your tax, corporate tax, before paying the full-fledged, the 20%. I think it's nice. The government is allowing you to stand up progressively. This is a real good news as for the basic incentive as stated in Article 26. Article 27, brand new, doesn't exist in the previous law. It's about additional incentive. On top of the basic incentive, you will receive additional incentive. And to tell you frankly, we at the CDC, when we were drafting this law, we were just thinking about all the comments. I would not say complain, but comments or constructive input that we heard from existing investors. One of those comments deal with a shortage of skilled labor force. Personally, I accept the comment. It's true. As opposed to Singapore, where you really have a skilled labor force, Cambodia is at the opposite. For this reason, we recognize it and let's take measures to remedy that. And Article 27 will provide you additional incentive by way of giving you the possibility whenever you spend 100 US for capacity building, skill upgrading, you spend 100, we will allow you to deduct 150 from the what we call tax base when you calculate the tax to be paid. These allow you to spend money to provide skill training to your labor force, but not at your own expense. No, the government will accompany you. This is very, very interesting. Likewise, some companies do have more sense of responsibility, social corporate responsibilities, without being an obligation from the government. They are spending money for dormitories, for transportation. Article 27 will provide you special incentive, additional incentive for those expenses. Last but not least, Article 28 is about special incentive. Special incentive in the law are not yet precisely mentioned which sector. Activities in sectors that we are considering of high priority will be mentioned in the annual financial law, not in the investment law, but in the financial law. Why? Priorities may change. For this year, the priority may be this sector, but in 3 years, we may change priorities. As an investor, you may not like that we amend the investment law every year. So we don't touch the law and we put those priority sectors in the financial law, because every year at sometime in December, end of December, our Ministry of Economy and Finance is submitting to the cabinet the annual financial law. We approve it and then we send it to the National Assembly. So we can change. When priorities change, we will change accordingly. Here are the very good news that I like to mention. And I hope sincerely that after me, other speakers, other panelists will highlight other points and will motivate participants, online participants, to ask more specific questions. I stand ready to answer to all your questions. Not sure that I will be able to respond to all of them, but I'm here at your entire disposal this afternoon. I thank you for your kind attention, and I again wish to thank Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Singapore in Cambodia, and to our friends from Singapore Business Federation to have organized the session this afternoon. I thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency. So our first speaker for the day is Mr. David Totem, Managing Director of Emerging Markets Consulting. Mr. Totem is the Managing Director for Emerging Markets Consulting and has almost 30 years of consulting experience in Southeast Asia, covering a span of stakeholders from the government, international development agencies, multinational corporations to the private corporates. Today, David will be sharing on the business climate, risk, and opportunities in Cambodia. Over to you, David.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us. As the Excellencies mentioned, this is an exciting time for Cambodia in terms of growth, an exciting future aiming for higher middle income status.
David, could you turn on your camera, David?
My camera is on, I believe, no?
No, it's not. We can't see you.
My camera says it is on, I'm afraid.
Okay, no worries.
I can see a picture of myself, so but I don't have control over my slides.
Yeah, we have given you the control for your slide.
Let me see.
Yes, apologies to our attendees. I think David is actually probably having some technical issues. Let's just give him 1 minute for him to reconnect back. Okay, in view of our timing, maybe I would like to invite our second speaker, Mr. Han Peng Kwang. Mr. Han Peng Kwang, CEO of Wingman Cambodia. So Mr. Han started his banking career at Public Bank Berhad, one of the largest commercial banks in Malaysia. He has experience in various capacities, including sales and marketing, loan securities and documentation, credit control and trade financing. Today, Mr. Han will be sharing with you on the investment opportunities into Cambodia. Mr. Han, please.
Yeah, very good afternoon. I'd like to pay my respect to His Excellency Chenda Sopia, Minister attached to the Prime Minister and the Secretary General of the Council for the Development of Cambodia. His Excellency Teo Lay Chen, Ambassador of the Republic of Singapore in the Kingdom of Cambodia. His Excellency Sok Khun, Ambassador of the Royal Embassy of Cambodia to the Republic of Singapore. Fellow speakers, ladies and gentlemen, and a very good afternoon, everyone. And it's a privilege for me to be able to have a few minutes to share about my view about investment opportunity in Cambodia in this forum. So very quickly, I will go over my slides today, which is about the topic of the day is discovering Cambodia, insights into the business opportunity in Cambodia. I'll go to 4 topics briefly about the macroeconomics indicator in Cambodia. And the question for today is why invest in Cambodia? And since I'm from the banking background, I also like to share about some information about the banking industry in Cambodia. And finally, a very brief introduction about Wingman Cambodia, where currently I'm the CEO. So ambassadors, the previous speakers has mentioned about the economic indicators in Cambodia in terms of GDP growth. For the past 2 decades, GDP has been growing more than 7% in the past 2 decades. And for me, I looking at the past 13 years, the GDP has been growing at 7.13%. And prior to COVID-19 pandemic in the year 2020, where everybody is affected, and Cambodia is no exception, where the GDP growth was contracted by 3.15%. But going forward, based on the ADB forecast, the Cambodia has recovered slightly last year in 2020 by growing about 3%, and forecasted this year it will grow by 5.3% in 2022, and thereafter 6.5% in 2023. Now, what is the factor that caused the economy to recover? Because of the one of the major factor is because of the high vaccination rate of the Cambodian people. And also the recovery in the light manufacturing industry in Cambodia, such as bicycle assembly or electronic components manufacturing or wiring products, and as well as agriculture export that is increasingly in Cambodia to other countries, such as cassava, banana, and rubber export. And there's also a gradual recovery in the wholesale, retail trade, and real estate sector post-COVID-19 pandemic. And not forgetting, there's continued to be a growth in the garment and travel goods and footwear segment, driven by the strong external demand and also supported by the relocation of orders from China and other neighboring countries as well. And finally, there's also the growth in the non-garment manufacturing sector, as Cambodia is trying to diversify away from the garment manufacturing to other industries. So the demand will also expected to increase due to the FTA free trade agreement between China and Korea, for example, where it expected to boost the export of agriculture product in Cambodia. Right. Now, this is some statistics, basic statistics about Cambodia as a country. The land is about 181,000 square kilometers, which is about 250 times the size of Singapore Island. Population today is about 17.2 million. This is excluding the expatriate in Cambodia. Roughly estimated there are more than 100,000 expat working and living in Cambodia today. And in terms of the country, there are 25 provinces, and of course the major provinces is in Phnom Penh, and also the neighboring country. I mean the more developed or say exciting province like Sihanoukville, where the port is located, and of course Siem Reap, where Angkor Wat is located, like the famous tourist spot. Trade balance is yearly trade balance has always been in a deficit because Cambodia import more goods than they export. Right, of course, the minimum wage in Cambodia is $194 per month, and it is subject to negotiation every 2 years. And the GDP growth, now this GDP growth of 10.2% in 2022 is projected by KPMG in their book, in their investment publication. Of course, every organization, ADB, World Bank, have their own method of doing their forecast. So like ADB, I mentioned just now, in 2022, the expected growth is about 5.3%. Right, and I'll go over the exchange rate and inflation rate in the next slide. Right, so for inflation, every year has been quite consistent, except for 2022 this year. Again, globally, because of this war in the Ukraine and Russia, the inflation is projected to increase this year, averaging 4.7%, basically due to the surge in the energy prices, but expected to moderate next year in 2023, where we expect the the energy price to be reduced. Right, and then in terms of the exchange rate in Cambodia between US dollar and Cambodia has always been quite consistent or stable since the past. This is a statistic for the past 13 years from 2009 to 2022. And you can see that for the past 13 years, the range, especially from 2010 onwards, the exchange rate is between 3,009 real to 4,000 real, 4,100 real to $1. Of course, if you go to the market, to the web market, when you go do shopping, basically people in Cambodia, they will usually take 4,000 real to dollar as the usual exchange rate. So the exchange rate is quite stable, and it is also more or less managed by National Bank of Cambodia here as well. Right. So next topic is about why investing in Cambodia, and there's a few topics here, or the few factors here. Many of the factors has already been covered by Excellency Sok Chenda just now. A very attractive incentive for the investors to come to Cambodia. I'm just offering another point of view. Number one here, in terms of ASEAN, as a member of the ASEAN in this region, also Cambodia also benefit from tax holidays, from improved custom clearance, and also reduction in impact costs, or so-called import cost. And as a member of World Trade Organization since 2014, the benefit is also to help Cambodia becoming more developed, and it also cut costs of doing business internationally. And it also helps when it comes to trade disputes and trade settlement. And finally, as a member of WTO, Cambodia also got a benefit where it can stimulate economic growth and employment in the country. Now, duty-free is also something that Cambodia is enjoying. For example, US government provides duty-free access for exported Cambodian goods such as suitcases or handbags, backpacks, and a wallet under the Generalized System of Preferences GSP benefit since 2016. And the EU has also provided EBA, or everything but arm, privileges to the Cambodia, where they provide duty-free and quota-free access for all the exports, or most of the exports that going into the US market, EU market from Cambodia. Right. Favorable investment Cambodia. Again, this is highlighted by Excellency Sok Chenda just now, talking about the various incentives, about the low corporate tax, about the qualified investment project where you can enjoy profit tax holidays, exemption from import duties on your construction material, your production equipment, and also input material or raw material. And again, also Excellency Sok Chenda talking about there's no restriction when you want to repatriate your profit back to your home country or anywhere in the world. There's no capital control in the Cambodia today. And 100% Cambodian business, you can also own 100% as a foreigner in Cambodia, whereas in other countries, you need to set up a joint venture with the local partners. And finally, one important criteria is that US dollar is widely used in this country, and therefore it actually helps you in terms of reducing your foreign exchange risk in terms of loss in foreign exchange, right? And finally, Cambodia, it has one of the Asia lowest labor costs and a very dynamic workforce, where I mentioned just now the minimum labor wage is $194 per month. And also 65% of the population is between the age of 15 to 64 years old today, meaning out of 17 million, there are 11 million people that can contribute economically to the country, or contribute to the workforce. So another reason to invest in Cambodia is, again, this talking about macroeconomic stability. We talk about the average growth already, and about 7% for the past 20 years. And after COVID, the country is also seeing the trend that it has recovered in terms of GDP has been growing steadily and forecast to be growing steadily in the forthcoming years. The country is also politically stable, and the government is also very pro-business, as what was explained by Excellency Sok Chenda and Excellency Ambassador Madam Teo, also talking about how the government has come up with various policy to encourage investors to invest in Cambodia. And it has one of the most open economy in the sense that the country has signed various FTA. The biggest is, of course, this Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership RCEP. There's a bilateral free trade agreement with China and also a bilateral free trade agreement between Cambodia and Korea. And meaning that the exports from Cambodia to other countries can enjoy basically tariff-free, duty-free benefits. And Cambodia, in terms of strategic location, it is centrally located in Indochina. If you stay in Phnom Penh, for you to fly to Bangkok, it's only about 45 minutes. To fly to Vientiane in Laos, also another 45 minutes. As well as to fly into Ho Chi Minh, it's also about another 45 minutes to 1 hour, right? And then to fly back to Malaysia or Singapore is less than 2 hours. So it's very centralized, very location in terms of the region, Southeast, in this Indochina region. Right, and finally, I talk about the young population just now, so I did not need to stress on this point. And this is part of the reason why you should consider investing in Cambodia. There are many more reasons, but because of time constraint, I will move on to some background about banking industries in Cambodia. Overall, if you see here as at 31st January 2022, there are 56 commercial banks in Cambodia serving 17 million population of Cambodia. And out of the 56 commercial bank, 12 are foreign bank or foreign bank branch, 26 are locally incorporated, 18 are subsidiary bank. And you see that some of the big banks are already established in Cambodia. Banks like ICBC and BOC, Bank of China is already here. Bangkok Bank is here. Kasikorn Bank is here. From Korea, like Shinhan Bank, Kukmin Bank, right? And also from Malaysia, like Maybank and Public Bank are already established in Cambodia, right? And also there are 10 specialized banks, and besides that, there are also 2,196 money changers. And in terms of the next slide, there is 84 microfinance institutions in Cambodia. Basically, it is to cater to the people who require small amount of money. So there are out of the 84 microfinance institution MFI, 79 are MFI where their purpose is only to lend money to the or provide micro loans, right? Basically to the farmers, to the villagers, to help them to elevate their poverty. 5 of them are, we call that microfinance institution with a deposit taking license, where they can actually accept deposit from the public. There are 31 payment service institutions. Basically, these are all payment company in Cambodia. I call them fintech. You can call them fintech as well. There are 17 leasing companies. Finally, there are 17 leasing companies doing hire purchase in Cambodia. So you see, there are more than in Cambodia today, and serving the needs of both local as well as international or investors as well. And in terms of banking, overall banking industry in Cambodia, the lending and the deposit has been growing in the banking industry over the past 5 years. And as at 2021, there is a 190 trillion real. There's 190 trillion real of deposit in the banking industry, equivalent to 47.5 billion US dollar. In terms of and loans, there are 159.7 trillion Khmer Ringgit extended by all the financial institutions to the borrower, equivalent to 40 billion US dollar. And recently in the NBC, National Bank of Cambodia publication, as at June 30th, the number of loans has grown from 40 billion to 50 billion, 50.7 billion recently, showing that the economic sector has kicked off and continue to improve with more economic activities being revived in this country. Right. How many depositors are there in Cambodia? There are about 12.6 million accounts, but could be some of the accounts, some of the depositors have more than 2 or 3 accounts. So the numbers, that's why it's higher. Right. In terms of borrower, there are 3.4 million borrowers in the country. Right. So the borrowers, the bank can offer loans to foreigner as well, as long as you set up a company in Cambodia and properly registered with the Ministry of Commerce. The bank are able to support you in terms of OPEX and CAPEX, and also helping you in terms of the money management, payroll services, remittance services, and so on and so forth. Right. So in terms of lending in Cambodia, you can see from this pie chart, there are more or less there are 18 different types of industries in Cambodia, and the banks what I call it, some of the industries or major industries that the bank are lending to, industries such as retail trade at 15.8%, wholesale trade, and then there's towards construction and personal consumption, real estate activities, and also finally mortgage loan at 13.6%. So overall, this is talking about the banking in Cambodia. Different types of loan that the bank can offer to a company. We can give you a working capital loan, overdraft, term loan, trade finance. There could be supply chain financing. There could be hire purchase, leasing. So we are able to, talking about the overall commercial banking sector in Cambodia, we are able to meet the financial requirement or the financial needs of all the investors in Cambodia today. Now, finally, just a short briefing about the history of Wingman in Cambodia. Our bank is 100% incorporated in Cambodia, owned by a Cambodian, and we started in 2009 as a payment company, very similar to M-Pesa. If you know M-Pesa from Kenya, we are here incorporated in 2009 to support all the we call it to resolve all the pain points when the workers that's working in a government factory in Cambodia want to send money back to support their parents in the provinces. So it started in 2009 for the purpose of resolving this pain point. And over the years, we have grown and we have included more services into our business. And we also engage wing agent, third-party agent to help us to serve our customer in all the provinces in the country. We have 4,000 agents in 2015, and today we have more than 10,000 agents throughout the whole country to support our customers. And as well as we grow along, we have also upgrade ourselves from a payment company to a specialized bank in 2014, and then become a commercial bank in December 2020. And over the years, we have started to offer not just payment services, but as well as tie up with Alipay, WeChat Pay, MoneyGram, Western Union to do domestic and international remittances, as well as also Visa and Master as well, right? So today, Wing Bank can have a whole range of products and services to cater to our customers, right? Some of our success in Cambodia, right? We can have, in terms of presence, we are covered in 100% of the districts in Cambodia today. Everywhere you go, you will see a green wing agent everywhere to provide basic financial requirement needs to the customers. We can accept remittance from over 200 countries. We have 90 financial partners that are working together with us. In terms of loan disbursement, instead of collecting installment from other borrowers, we have more than 10,000 agents working for us, and we also have more than 80,000 merchants in our ecosystem, in our e-commerce platform today, and we have we have partnered with more than 500 corporate partners. So my final slide is talking about Wing Bank, because we are part of the Royal Group of Companies. Another is a local conglomerate in Cambodia, and over the years, the company, the Royal Group of Company, has expanded, and we are involved in numerous industries such as telco in Selkap. We have also ISP, and you have TV broadcast like CTN and CNC. We are also involved in insurance industry, Infinity General Insurance and CamLife Micro Insurance. We are involved in finance, in the Wing Bank and J Trust Royal Bank and SBI Royal Securities. Chinese Royal Finance. We are also involved in energy sector. We have coal and hydro power plants. We are also involved in hospitality industry. We have Cambodia Hotel, Royal Sands in Kok Kong, education industry as well. We have Southbridge and Northbridge International School. We have also involved in property development. For example, our Royal Platinum is a condominium project that we are collaborating together with HLH from Singapore, Hong Lai Huat, which is a public listed company in Singapore. So the Royal Group is partnering with them to develop this condominium project in Phnom Penh City. We are also involved as the operator of a special economic zone, and also finally in terms of transportation and aviation and other industries. So as part of Royal Group in Cambodia, we are always open to partnership and collaboration with investors in Cambodia. Right. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to answer any questions that you may have in regards to my presentation just now. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Han. So next up, I would like to invite back David, Managing Director of Emerging Markets Consulting, who will be sharing with you on the business climate, risk and opportunities in Cambodia. David, back to you.
Thank you very much. Apologies for the interruption earlier. Good, I've got it. I'm trying to go back. Apologies. 1, 2, good. Okay. So just a couple of words of introduction. I run Emerging Markets Consulting, which was founded in Cambodia in 2004. We've worked extensively in Cambodia, but also over the years increasingly worked overseas in other countries. We have or had 3 offices regionally. They're in Cambodia, which is our largest, Laos PDR, and until recently Myanmar. And we've worked over the years extensively with Singaporean clients also. That includes a variety of sectors, and also with the Singapore Business Federation, with Enterprise Singapore, and also with other Singaporean institutions like NI and Poly, for example. Regarding myself, I've lived in Cambodia for now 14 years. I originally came here as a volunteer. My background, originally I studied business, then economics, and then business law in Germany, then the UK, and then Belgium. Before I came to Cambodia, I ran a software development company in the UK, a small one, which we sold to other investors. And prior to that, I worked in Central Asia, so Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and so forth, Russia, developing Europe, so Eastern Europe, and the UK. So that's my background. I'll move on. So, one of the challenges of having such a well-prepared event is that you've all been provided with a great set of information by Singapore Business Federation on the Cambodian economy, and we have great speakers here who are experts in many of the relevant areas. So what I'm going to try and do is take a higher level view of what the opportunities are, and to do that, focus really on 3 key questions. They are business opportunity 1, which is as a Singapore company selling into Cambodia, so accessing domestic Cambodian demand. Business opportunity 2 is selling to the world from Cambodia. So in that case, you are accessing Cambodian resources and competitiveness as a location for manufacturing, and then leveraging that to go and sell to other countries. And then number 3, look at the business opportunity of investing now in Cambodia. As the other speakers have referred to, Cambodia has handled COVID extremely well, and is handling the current global inflationary problems due to the war in Russia and Ukraine primarily, also handling that well. That means for potential investors or companies seeking to do business with or in Cambodia, it is actually a good time. Cambodia has demonstrated its ability to bounce back and continue to grow. So I'll move on to the first slide. So this slide is really about selling to Cambodia as a Singaporean company. Some of the key themes will be familiar because they've been mentioned, but I've tried to put in some slightly different data points. So Cambodia's economic growth is creating a growing consumer class, as referred to previously, and an industrial base. However, because Cambodia is a small developing economy, currently to satisfy that consumer class, it imports a lot of consumer products from overseas, and it needs to also import a lot of capital goods to develop their industrial base and to continue to feed that growth. As mentioned earlier by the Singaporean ambassador, the Cambodia's medium-term or long-term objective is to go and become higher middle income by 2030. To do that, it needs a stronger industrial base. So if you look at let's see if I can turn on the highlighter. No, I can't turn on the highlighter. So if you look in the top left hand, I included some data to illustrate the growing consumption capacity in Phnom Penh. So between 2017 and 2026, we expect 100% approximately increase in households that spend 12.5 to 38K, and at the other end of the spectrum, we expect to see 176%, so between 2017 and 2026, in households that are able to spend $55,000 a year. So that's a general figure for expenditure, covers all goods and services, including durable products, like cars, washing machines, air conditioning, and so forth, that are purchased by households. It excludes buying a house, but would exclude renting a house, for example. So as you can see, for a developing country, those are quite nice figures if you're seeking to go and sell product to households in Cambodia, in Phnom Penh. Just to give you a sense of the magnitude, in 2026, this figure of households equates to approximately 330,000. So that's the figure in absolute terms. For those of you who previously looked at Myanmar, it's probably worth highlighting very briefly that Cambodia is genuinely a single market of consumers. It's a single country, single ethnicity, language. There's little or no division between the various parts of the country. If you have looked at or have worked in Myanmar before, Myanmar is a complete different kettle of fish, where the various provinces of Myanmar are remarkably different in terms of ethnicity, history, traditions, language, and so forth. And whilst Myanmar is a larger country, it represents in many ways many markets, whereas Cambodia is genuinely a single market to access. That makes it easier, more cost efficient for you guys. In order to go and feed that consumer base, we have seen a large growth in retail space. So on the top right-hand corner, this graph shows the increase in that from 2017 to forecast 2025. These figures are pretty reliable because obviously construction projects are planned some years in advance. What's notable here is you'll see a large jump between 2021 to 2023. That's, for your interest, almost entirely 3 big projects, all of them malls. What's particularly interesting to show how robust the consumer consumption has been is that they already have pre-commitments for occupancy of 80%, 60%, and 50%. Those three malls. So consumer spending is robust and it is holding up, particularly at the high end. If, on the other hand, your interest is selling industrial equipment and associated services, the bottom left-hand chart gives you a sense of how that market is growing. I think what's particularly interesting here is if you look between 2017 and 2019, that figure almost doubled from below 2,000 to getting up to below 2,000, getting close to 3,500. It is obviously a great shame that COVID came along and the post-COVID challenges that we're facing. But as you can see also from 2019, whilst imports of machinery and equipment has not continued its upward trend, it has stayed pretty robust. A small dip in 2020 and then a recovery to 2019 levels in 2021. If I was a betting man, I would guess in 2022 it will grow again. Obviously, buying industrial equipment frequently is accompanied by services. We don't have data on that, but certainly we know of Singapore engineering firms and similar that are active in Cambodia. What this means in terms of opportunity and risks. So key issues, I think, for investors and businesses here is if you're looking at selling B2B industrial equipment, a key issue you'll encounter is low-cost competition from Chinese and others. It is absolutely true that there's a Singaporean company, you benefit from substantially higher your equipment, and the reputation of your companies is held in substantially higher esteem than a Chinese supplier. But Chinese suppliers do set a kind of price floor on the market, and frequently that is an objection and a budgetary issue that you have to overcome. If you're looking at selling consumer products, probably the biggest challenge is informal imports. It's still quite a big problem in Cambodia, and that can be a bit of a drag on your growth. The government is taking steps to address both these issues and many others besides. In terms of the industrial side of things, B2B, in the shorter term, as referred to by Mr. Han, there are tax-free incentives on import of capital goods. In the longer term, the government in the investment law seeks to go and encourage the development of domestic industry, so it's offering strong incentives for SMEs. And Excellency Sok Chandar referred to that earlier on. If you look on the consumer side, and I haven't put it on the slides, I apologize, the government is working hard to limit the problems of grey market and parallel imports, is working towards the pan-ASEAN goals of customs, regulation and systems and processes. Similarly, it's working towards the ASEAN goal of establishing a strong ASEAN market for e-commerce, and the e-commerce law is recently arrived also. So that helps sell digital products and services into Cambodia also. In terms of market entry options, obviously many of you guys will be are not seeking necessarily to invest in Cambodia, so you can directly export to Cambodia. You can use a distributor, an LSH. Mr. Richard Seo would be an excellent choice if you're in the food and beverage business. In other sectors, similar services to LSH would be DKSH that works in pharmaceuticals. They provide a full range of value-added services to ensure that your products reach the right consumers. If you are accessing a much larger population of consumers in Cambodia, you might seek to set up a JV or to invest in wholly owned facilities in Cambodia, which, as mentioned before, you can do with very, very few limitations. I'm going to move on to the next slide. I apologize if I'm going too slow or indeed too fast. This is business opportunity 2, and doubtless this is the one that is of most interest to Cambodian policymakers. This is where investors like yourself access Cambodians' comparative advantage in relatively cheap labor, land, and raw materials, its location, in order to produce and export Cambodian-made products to regional global markets. The government seeks and does a very good job of trying to facilitate this through a range of incentives. Some of the benefits have already been mentioned, so I'm just going to single out the ones where I can add a bit of data. If you look at the top left-hand corner, this is where Cambodia stands as of to 2020 regarding labour cost. As you can see, it's a little bit higher than Myanmar and Laos. I would say it offers substantial benefits compared to those two countries, and still remains lower than all those other countries, and substantially lower. These are averages, of course. One thing I would highlight regarding this data is we took it from a survey by JETRO, that's the Japanese trade organization, and it's actually provided by the Cambodian data is based on a survey of 30 Japanese investors, and so insofar as Japanese investors are a good proxy for Singaporean investors, it represents good data. Normally you'd expect to see a very wide range, but like I said, Japanese is probably a fairly good proxy for what we might expect to see for Singaporean investors and the businesses which they wish to operate in Cambodia. The figure in the top right-hand corner simply describes extensive connections that Cambodia has. And that was described previously. So to the top right, you can access Thai market and the Thai ports. To the bottom left, you can access Cambodia's largest maritime port, which is Sihanoukville, and from there, Singapore and European markets. To the bottom right, you can access Ho Chi Minh and nearby Thai Met maritime port, and from there, you can cost efficiently access markets further to the east. These connections are provided by road, by river port, in relation to Thailand, railway to a certain extent. And that places Cambodia in an enviable position where between large growing economies, Thailand and Vietnam, and with access to the rest of the world. On the key issues, so looking at the text on the right-hand side, we're really just going to quickly reinforce some issues that have been mentioned previously because they are important and therefore worth emphasizing. If you wish to invest in manufacturing or processing in Cambodia, workforce development is a challenge. Sok Chandam mentioned that in his earlier discussion. But what he also mentioned very importantly is the Cambodia government recognizes this and is addressing it through current incentives, but also through the new investment law. So that was Articles 25 through to 28. He gave a good example of how this relates to workforce development, which is if a company spends $100 on educating their staff, the government will return to them 150 in their tax bill. I think that also illustrates a great approach of the Cambodian government, which is to incentivize companies who know what they require from their workforce to make that investment, rather than attempt to entirely lead that question themselves. Similarly, Excellency Tsai Lau-cheng talked about some of the other constraints and some of the other investments that Singapore companies are making themselves to alleviate them, right? So a key issue in Cambodia, let's take agriculture for example, is whilst the agricultural product itself is competitive at a farm gate price, so you can buy it at a cheap enough price, operating businesses, as Sok Chanda referred to, the costs are quite high. Labour force is one, workforce development rather, logistics is another that's commonly cited, electricity is another, cost of finance sometimes can be expensive. But Singapore businesses are active in investing in all these areas. The example of YCH and Wellbridge was given, the Phnom Penh Logistics Complex. In addition, a Singaporean resident investment fund has recently established Kamai Cold Chain, which is Cambodia's first cost-stocking and temperature-controlled logistics facility. And that has broken ground about 3 months ago. In the finance domain that Mr. Han covered so well, I would also add that the Singapore FinTech Association has provided a great deal of support to the Cambodian Association of Finance and Technology Companies to develop that sector. And there's been some good examples of Singaporean VC investing into the development of that Cambodian sector. So whilst there are problems, the government is very much focused on providing the right incentives to alleviate them. And similarly, where there are problems, there are frequently opportunities. And Singapore companies, as well as many others, are investing in those areas to the benefit of other investors. I was getting close to the end. I will simply iterate that an important message that Excellency Sok Chanda provided. Cambodia does subscribe to a large number of free trade agreements and bilateral investment treaties. At the core of Cambodia's approach to those is it does grant foreign investors equal status in almost every regard to foreign investors, to domestic investors rather, and that is provides legal confidence that your interests will be protected. I'm going to finish very briefly. This last slide, the last slide was going to highlight generally the opportunities, highlight how well Cambodia has managed the pandemic, but these issues have really been covered. So I will finish at that point. And of course, if anybody would like to ask questions later on today or subsequently via email, we'll be very happy to try and answer them. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, David. Our last speaker for the afternoon is Mr. Richard Seah, Commercial Director of Lim Siang Huat. As the Commercial Director for the Indo-China region, Richard is responsible for the management of distribution business, convenience store and supermarket in Singapore, Cambodia and Vietnam. Richard has over 40 years of experience in the FMCG sector, previously being the CEO of Auric Pacific Marketing and 7-Eleven under DFI Group before moving to Cambodia as CEO of Lucky Supermarket. Today, Richard will be sharing on the retail market dynamics, consumer profiles, and his experience of entering Cambodia. Richard, please.
Thank you, Mr. Sok Chanda, Ambassador Sokun, Ambassador Teo, panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I will start with what most of the panelists have spoken about. This is a snapshot of the population As mentioned, the age population of 25 to 49 is almost 69%, which is a huge young population. Phnom Penh is basically a business city. Most of the expat and business HQ are located here. And Siem Reap is what I call a tourist city, 2.2 million visitors in 2019. Slightly more females than male. Okay, this is the pictorial of what FDI that has been spoken about. When I was there in 2011, Lucky has only 6 outlets. Today, he has almost 49 outlets already. Aeon has opened 2 malls. Metro has 2 outlets. 7-Eleven has already 7 stores. Opportunity in the food service, if you can look from the pictures on the presentation, we have Tung Luk that was there last year, if I'm not mistaken, Little Sheep 3 years back. And they have the various Western food and Italian food restaurants. So there are huge opportunity for the B2B business. Again, some pictorial on the some of the FDI. Starbucks is there. Maxim Group Maxim Group own 50% and DFI own 50%. So they are there. Amazon from Thailand. We have Hard Rock, Burger King, Yoshinoya. So a quick one into what we do. We've been in the market since 1993, one of the top 3 distributors in Cambodia. We are familiar with the marketplace. We have infrastructure for frozen, chill, aircon, as well as ambience. Our main office in Singapore would be able to facilitate shipment from Singapore over to Cambodia. If you can't ship in full container, we can bring partial container over, and we can highlight and we can distribute the product accordingly. We can conceptualize, design, construct POS material, provide social media program, manage agency from 3, 4, 5 PL, conduct market research and market entry strategy. So these are some of the attributes over here. I will go back one slide. With all the FDI and the expansion of the food industry as well as the retail industry, the salary of the staff has actually gone up substantially in this sector, partly because of the competition for people who are more qualified and able to speak basic English. This is what we see. And so as an example, when I was there in 2011, salary was about 500 for store manager. Today is close to about 1,005. So in this respect, the younger population entering the workforce, for those who enter the food, retail, and the food service industry, due to competition, they are getting higher salary. And with higher salary comes better spending power. So what we have as I mentioned just now, we have ambience storage, we have chill capacity, we have frozen capacity, and we can expand according to the requirement as well. Some of the success that we have done in the February and March this year, we brought 7 Singapore food companies into Cambodia. We arranged the shipment from Singapore. We designed the setup of the structure over here. We construct it, send it over. We provide the social media engagement. We hired all this coverage in the social media, and this is how we look like. And we launched it in 10 Lucky supermarket, and we extended it for 5 more outlets in March. So in February we have 10, in March we have 5, and starting August this month we are engaging with Chipmong, which is a growing chain of supermarket in Cambodia as well as a local company. And they have 7 major supermarkets, which will be also participating in this program with them. Mine is relatively short. Most of the agenda is covered. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, so once again, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We hope the webinar has been fruitful and enriching for you. So you will also see a connecting poll for you now to indicate if you would like to be linked up with any of our partners. So we hope that you can actually complete the poll for us. So besides today's webinar, we also have other upcoming festival webinars that we hope you can join us. So we welcome your feedback for the webinar via the QR code on the screen. And feel free to reach out to Global Connect at SPF to bring your business to Cambodia. Once again, thank you for attending our webinar, and we look forward to having you again. Thank you.